Hello, everyone. This is, I guess, the weekly demo. Sorry, show and tell. So today I'll be demonstrating some progress on VS Code. It's been something I've been working on for a while, so I guess I'll jump right into it. Let me see. I have a ultra wide screen, so I'm trying to figure out if I can share, okay, a portion of the screen. So let me adjust this. One second. Will it let me adjust? Okay, I'll just go with this. So this epic, I guess I'll show the screenshots real quick. So the idea was in Visual Studio to surface security findings. So if you haven't worked with the GitLab extension, it's kind of like a plugin. You can download this. I think it's hosted on like the official website that hosts all the plugins for VS Code. So once you download it, you can access your GitLab instance, whether it's local or the .com, using an auth token that you generate through your user like settings. So what we wanted to do was surface security findings for the current branch you're working on. So these are screenshots, but I'll demo the real thing here in a second. So I have this test project, and this is the security reports project that the Govern team has set up. So this is just the remote that's set up. This is the current branch we're on. And then that project is this one. So we see it's the same remote. This MR is tied to that branch that we have checked out, that master patch 211C. That's what this is. So now going to the actual demo of the UI. If we go to, so this is the current development branch I have. This work is going through final review to get merged into the master or main of the VS Code project, but I'll run it here locally. So I kick off the extension. So this is building, we'll debug anyway. And then this will then open this, development instance. And the extension is this icon over here. So you click on this. Wait, why is it not? Let me double check what project we've checked out here. I'm not sure why activating. Okay, this is working just right before. So let me try to relaunch this. Not sure why it's doing that. That was weird. Anyway, so this here is existing behavior, so you can kind of see issues. I'm going through this just because if you haven't seen the existing functionality of the VS Code extension, it's kind of nice to walk through this. So we expose some data that traditionally you would access through the GitLab monolith, like the website. And what we wanted to do was surface security data. So what we added was the security scanning area. So if you have, for this current branch, a pipeline that's run that generated like security findings, you will see them here. So they're grouped into new and fixed findings. So the intent here being that new findings are ones that were detected as a result of, I guess, the changes you've made. So new findings that if you merge that branch would create new vulnerabilities. And fixed findings are findings that if you merge that branch have resolved, I think, vulnerabilities in the branch you're merging into. So they're grouped by severity level. So this is production data off of the merge request I just showed you. So you kind of have them grouped here. These icons are associated with that level of severity. What the actual finding is, let me move this over here. And what's missing right now, and that's what I'm working on this milestone, is if you double click on one of these, it's supposed to open a tab, which then will give you the single finding view. Essentially what you're used to in the UI. So what's missing is this piece. And we're gonna basically, as much as possible, imitate or clone kind of the visual elements here in a tab. So that's kind of it. And you'll see that whatever shows up here is new and fixed, show up exactly the same as the UI here. That's pretty much it. I kind of wanted to open it up to questions or any feedback. I think to clarify also that we're showing findings for, I think, all the report types. I know that the data between all the scanners is slightly different, but what we're showing is what they all have in common. So it's very much going to just be, let me see if I can show you in the designs. This is what's missing, this right panel here. So the status, policy violations is not part of the scope of this epic. There's a separate epic for that, but essentially we'll get the description, severity, the project it is, the tool that found it, the scanner that found it, and some identifiers. So this, I think, is the basic set of data that is common across all the scanners when they generate a finding. So this is the piece that I'll be aiming to just complete, hoping to complete this milestone. But other than that, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one question, Fernando. Sure. But let me start by saying that I really love this feature. It's very, very, very cool. I think it's very helpful for developer. I would actually use it myself, and I have used a bit the plugin. It's quite cool actually. So that's really great work. Just a couple of questions. So I'm not sure, you might have mentioned this already, but what kind of vulnerabilities are these? Are they, for instance, secret detection vulnerabilities, or
sure, they're technically they're all the scanners. I think I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure right now the API is hitting all the scanners. So what we do is we iterate through each scanner type. We actually right now, because the endpoint that was added by the Threat Insights team two milestones ago now, you specify the report type as a GraphQL query. So let me see if I actually show you. So the answer is all of them right now. So this is what the query looks like, and report type. Let's see. In this example, I'm just doing secret detection in the GraphQL query here, but in the demo, it's doing all of them. So whatever you see in the merge request widget, you'll see here. So these are the ones that are supported. Are we missing? I think that's not all of them. How many scanners do we have? Because here I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But as of now, it's these.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. And I have a second one. So here it will show up all the vulnerabilities, right? But then as a
so these are, to clarify the terminology, these are findings. So technically findings are what are found, as running these scanners in the context, on a feature branch, and then there has to be a merge request tied to this, or I think, yeah, a pipeline run. If I'm looking here, see, for this query, you need a merge request ID. So these findings are always tied to an MR. So if you have a branch checked out and you don't have the merge request set up for it, then there's probably not going to be a pipeline job. So you won't see anything here. It'll just say no scans found. So yeah, and then vulnerabilities are after you've merged in. And then I think it kicks off another pipeline run, and then anything found once it's on the main branch will be considered vulnerabilities. And that's what you'll see in the security dashboard. So this is all within the context of a merge request on the feature branch. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's you're right. I'm sorry for not using the right term. So findings, indeed. My main question is, so as a developer, right? I'm just trying to think out loud. I might have certain policies, right? So could be that my project manager has a policy there that we don't care about medium or about medium findings or vulnerabilities or whatever. Or maybe basically my question is, can we filter those findings depending on the existing policies that the project has? Would that make sense?
Sure. Right now, no. I think going through the epics, I don't think that's a feature that was discussed. What we do have, though, is policy. There's an epic to implement to surface what's it? Security policies. So that you can't filter through the UI, but the idea is as you see all these findings, you would see if there are any policy violations. This is eventual. This is like, a different epic, but the idea would be to eventually surface policy rules in the UI, but it wouldn't be with a filter. The idea would be that you would have basically maybe some type of visual. I forget if this icon is related to a policy violation or if it's just related to severity. But let's say, for example, this is related to a policy violation. You would have this logo, this icon here, and then you click into it, and then you would see here the policy violation rule. This is, again, not scheduled yet. This requires some additional work from the policies team and backend and to expose all of this. But that is, to answer your question, I think that's as much as I understand that we would surface policy violations in this manner. But that might be a feature improvement. I don't think right now in the UI, there's any type of filtering of the left nav here. I don't even know how we would implement those filters within the UI, but right now, no way to filter. It's a good idea though, if you just kind of wanted to see what violations you have. Only indication you would have would probably be this icon eventually. But that work again has not even been scheduled. And that, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for the questions. I think I'll try to I'll follow up with Connor and ask about that, but maybe that's something we can do as a follow-up. I don't even know what that would look like in terms of filtering, but yeah. So the only thing that's up in the air right now is, we're wanting to ship at this kind of milestone as the intent, but we may end up doing where you click on this will open a web browser with the modal for the single finding. Right now it's not linkable. I think the Threat Insights team is doing work around that to make that modal reusable and accessible. But if that doesn't pan out, I don't know the timeline that they have for that work. I may have to just focus on trying to get this work as originally planned, where you click on one of these and open within VS Code. If it turns out that it's going to take longer to implement the web version of this, we were trying to save some time because we thought, well, we could just generate a link, open the link, go to GitLab, GitLab, within a browser. But right now that's not as easy as it sounds, because that's all a view app. So it's not like a single page we could go to. We need to be able to use client-side routing and a lot of other stuff that's not as straightforward. So anyway, that's all I got.
I had a couple questions and
Sure.
a comment too. Just awesome work. This is like the 5th priority on our DevSecOps adoption priority list. So it's a huge priority, like across the board, across all teams. And it's really nice also to see just the collaboration across the secure and governed teams that's happening here. It comes up in like customer calls, and I think you guys all have the context of this, but with like trying to shift left and reduce the cost for every customer of finding vulnerabilities, this kind of thing, is like about as far left as you can go for finding vulnerabilities early in the development lifecycle. So it's definitely a huge win for our customers, and other competitors already have this kind of feature. So you're really helping close a gap for us, which is awesome. So I just want to make sure everyone here has that context too. But I wanted to ask, like, if this is the MVC, do you know if there's plans for like how we're kind of validating, what additional improvements they might want once this initial version's out? And then also, I think you already explained this, but once it's released, like to actually use it, does every engineer have to go into their IDE and enable this?
Okay, yeah, so I guess 2 answers or 2 parts. So I think Connor would know best. He's like the PM for this feature in terms of how he wants to go about testing and validating and what would be next. I think as far as like planned issues in the epic, I think it's 2 parts. It's exposing security findings, and that MVC includes the left nav, which I've showed you, and the right single finding view. It was already discussed with Connor about like, can we just ship the left nav? At least we surface findings that they exist, even though you can't drill down into them. And the response was like, that's still not quite enough functionality or value to the user. At least that's the feedback I got. So for MVC, it needs to be the left nav with being able to drill down to a single finding. So that is MVC, which I'm hoping to complete this milestones. So then the second part is what comes up out after this, and I think that's actually like broken down to an epic, and with a couple of issues right now that need refinement, is adding support for surfacing policy violations. So what that would do is, I think the policy violations apply to individual findings, and that requires, I think, a significant more amount of back-end work than it does front-end work, because we have a lot of the structure for the front end done now, or once this request is merged. So I think that hasn't been scheduled. I don't think it's been vetted. I think the challenge with that would be surfacing like consistency between the policy violation, like how the strings are generated, how the messaging is generated between the GitLab.com, the GitLab Rails monolith, like the main Rails app, versus VS Code here, because I think right now a lot of that text generation lives client side. So we would either have to replicate that here in VS Code or shift all that front end logic into the back end. So there's a lot of refactor work that's going to be needed to get policy violations to work. So that would be the immediate next thing I would think that Connor may push forward for, exposing policy violations in this. Beyond that, I assume it would be based off of customer feedback and whatever findings he has after the ships. So hopefully that makes sense. And if I think, let me share my screen again real quick. So that work is captured in this epic, which I'll post in the chat here in a second. But this is the second piece of it. And I think right now I'm not scheduled to work on it. It may be someone from the policies team, or it can be anyone else who has bandwidth to jump in. And that would be basically adding the, oh, actually, I'm sorry, we surface policy violations in 2 places. So actually, I don't think we need a filter. So going back, Nick, to your question, I think we surface policies violations in 2 ways. In line on the actual finding, and I'll have a little description, and then we'll actually have a completely different drop-down section for policy violations, so you could go right to them. And I think if you click down to an individual violation, this is what it would tell you what is being violated. So maybe that helps a little bit with what you were looking for, I guess, without the filter, but you would have a whole separate section. So all this work would probably be next if once we get the initial security finding stuff out. I just don't know the capacity for the policies team to work on this regarding backend. I think that would be the main dependency.
And then to actually use it, the individual
Oh, yeah.
developer has to
Yeah.
enable it.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, so there are 2 things to that. You need to follow the steps that you would just to enable the extension, and that requires you to download the extension. There's some configuration steps, basically to add the auth token, but once I think you add the auth token, you should be good to go. The only other requirement is that you have the security scanner set up in your project, and that's pretty standard in terms of like, if you want to, basically you need to still do the same steps you would need to do to have findings show up in the merge request. And you would need a merge request that existed for the feature branch you're working on. Other than that, it should auto detect the branch you currently have checked out, and it uses that. It's aware of the project and the directory you're in, and the branch you've checked out. So all that's automatic. If you don't have a merge request right now, we have no indication visually in the UI that says, hey, no merge request set up. Like, we don't have those kind of guides or suggestions. It just will say no scans found. So you would need to go to the docs to understand that you need a merge request.
Thanks.
Cool.
I had a quick follow-up question, but we're running out of time, so let's continue asking then. And thank you very much for the demo. I appreciate that, and good luck for the remaining work.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone.